Welcome to issue 3 of Subsea Video News. This goes on for about 10 minutes. I've got a bit of a cold, so please bear with me.
What don't they vote?
BP must be wondering when it's all going to end. By last September, it's already paid out $63.4 billion to cover clean-up costs and legal fees following the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. The company now says it'll take a new charge, lifting the total cost to $65 billion. BP faced more than 390,000 claims from businesses. Following the strategic alliance signed last March, Petrobras has transferred operatorship and 35% of the rights of the Lapa field to Total. The pre-salt Lapa field lies in the Santos Basin and came on stream in December 2016 via the Cidade de Carugatuba FPSO. Elsewhere in Brazil, McDermott's North Ocean 102 vessel arrived in Porto de Acu, ready to start work on QGEP's Atlanta field, also in the Santos Basin, in 5,000 feet of water. McDermott was awarded a surf contract back in 2015. Penguins! The big news is that Shell will redevelop the Penguins oil and gas field in the North Sea. Penguins currently consists of 4 drill centres tied back to Brent Charlie, but the redevelopment will be required when the field platform ceases production. It'll see an additional 8 wells being tied back to the float for an FPSO. And Shell says, it's the first new manned installation in the northern North Sea for almost 30 years. Gas will be exported teeing to the Flags line back to St Fergus. The project has a break-even price below $40 a barrel. You'll notice Shell have gone for a 7-marine cylindrical hull. There are 6 of these built, working mostly in the UK. The most recent one was in Dana's Western Isles FPSO. Came on stream about 2 months ago. Now, if you've never seen a cylindrical... sorry about this. If you've never seen a cylindrical hull before, let's have a quick look at it. So, many FPSOs are ship-shaped and as such tend to weather vane in response to prevailing winds and currents. And this movement means that risers entering the hull would entwine around each other. Most FPSOs prevent this by using a turret. A cylindrical FPSO, however, doesn't weather vane, so they don't need a turret or swivel. The design seems to be used so far in small to medium-sized fields, particularly in harsh waters. It was used up on Goliath, up in the Barents Sea. Speaking of FPSOs, Shell's completed the purchase of the Turritella FPO from SBM. Turritella is connected to the Stones Deepwater development. TK FPSO Petri L1 arrived in Atlanta field in Brazil this week. It spent almost 30 years in the North Sea, after which it was upgraded at the Damen shipyard in the Netherlands, and it's now on a 5-year charter for QGEP. More recently at Damen, its modification work on the Voss Stone has been completed. This incorporates a walk-to-work facility as well as a 50-ton heave-compensated knuckle-boom crane. Upstream Solutions has signed a letter of intent to build a Salt 310 well intervention in China Merchant in Shenzhen. The vessel will be capable of working... We do well intervention, but also flex lay, rigid pipe lay in 3,000 metres of water. It'll have a 3-in-1 tower designed by Huseman, the first of its kind to be ever built, and a hydrogen saturation system. Speaking of deep waters, Arca has installed a WAG, a water alternating gas manifold, in the Irikima Sul field in Santos Basin for Petrobras, in 2,200 metres. Government stuff. In a recent Norwegian production licence awards, 34 companies will be offered a total of 75 new production licences. Of these, 45 in the North Sea, 22 in the Norwegian Sea, and 8 in the Barents Sea. Elsewhere, the Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador Offshore Petroleum Board, the group that regulates activity in the oil fields off eastern Canada, has suspended operations of the Sea Rose FPSO because of an incident that happened last March. An iceberg came within 463 metres of the Sea Rose, which was carrying about 340,000 barrels of crude at the time. The FPSO should have disconnected and moved to a safer place. Seismic! Statoil has awarded Alcatel submarine networks and permanent reservoir monitoring on the Johan Sverdrup field. Seismic technology will be a key contributor for delivering Johan Sverdrup's 70% recovery ambition. Contracts. Fugros commenced a programme of geophysical and geotechnical work on ADNOC's Hail and Ghasha developments in Abu Dhabi. In the higher field, it'll use in the intertidal shoal area. Fugro is going to use amphibious buggies, while in deeper marine water, it'll carry out geophysical and bathymetric surveys using the Fugro Proteus. Inmenco Corrosion Technology has been awarded a contract by Ørsted Wind Power to deliver cathodic protection for equipment on Hornsea 1 off the Yorkshire coast here in the UK. It's the world's largest wind farm. The wind farm has 174 turbines, a total of 1.2 gigawatts. Statoil's renewed and expanded MMT's frame agreement, and this is a call-off which means that Statoil can award contracts for survey and light construction projects in the North Sea on an as-needed basis. The work will be carried out by the subsea vessel, the Havila Subsea. So what's the oil price going to be in the long term? This is a question discussed by BP Chief Economist Spencer Dale and Bassam Fatou, Director of the Oxford Institute for Energy Studies, this week. They wrote a paper basically saying the advent of electric vehicles and the growing pressure to decarbonise the transportation sector are changing the market. Growth in oil demand is likely to slow gradually and eventually peak, but when's this going to be? Nobody knows. In the past, there was a belief that limiting the supply of oil made it scarce and the price would tend to rise. This paradigm has now changed. The vast majority of projections expect the level of oil demand in 2035 and 2040 to be greater than it is today, but nobody expects a sharp drop-off. And even after oil demand has peaked, the world is likely to consume substantial quantities of oil for many years and decades to come. And this means investment in new oil production is likely to be required for the foreseeable future, and significant investments in new oil are needed to maintain existing levels of production. When you think of 3D printing, you normally think of small plastic models or parts or widgets being built. Huseman, however, have said they've produced the world's first 3D printed offshore crane hook. It passed load tests of 80 metric tons and all associated quality control checks. It exploits a 3D printing technique called wire and arc additive manufacturing, WAAM, to produce mid-sized to large components using high-grade tensile steel. Printing significantly reduces delivery time and at a cost competing with forgings and castings, and at a more consistent level. WAM can be used for all sorts of complex shapes. I read that and I remember a couple of months ago, Damon 3D printed a 1.3 metre diameter propeller, and they called it the WAMpeller, from a nickel aluminium bronze alloy. They said the steel or cast materials are isotropic, and they have the same properties in all directions. Models built up by the layer by layer are anisotropic, and they display different properties in different directions, so the material properties need to meet the applications. If you'd been flying over the Southwest Pacific in 2012, you might have seen something rather unusual, a raft of floating pumice. Pumice indicates the volcanic eruptions occurred on the seafloor, but this raft was huge. I think it grew to 150 square miles, a sign that the eruption was unusually large. A new paper published by the journal Science Advances has described the first close-up investigation to the underwater eruption. The international team, led by the University of Tasmania and Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, used an AUV, Autonomous Underwater Vehicle, Sentry, and an ROV, Remotely Operated Vehicle, JASON, to explore, map and collect data from erupted materials from the Havre volcano during a 2015 expedition. They looked at the detailed maps and they saw giant blocks of pumice, some of them the size of vans. More than 70% of all volcanic activity in the Earth occurs on the seafloor, but it's largely hidden from view by the seawater. Based on the size of the 2012 pumice raft, the eruption of the Havre volcano was estimated to be the largest documented underwater silicic eruption. Mapping the seafloor observations revealed the material that erupted was nearly 1.5 times larger than the 1980 eruption of Mount St Helens, and 75% floated to the surface away with the winds. The rest was spread across the seafloor up to several miles away. If you want to know more about subsea engineering, read UT2 or UT3, the magazine and online magazine of the Society of Underwater Technology.